Alright guys, such coming again. I hope you're doing good and enjoying your day so far. The final CDL team finally announced their roster last night. The Paris Gentlemate are official for next season. Lots of reaction to that team, and also they were having some scrims last night against OpTic Texas. A couple of very interesting scrim sets. OpTic destroying Gentlemates later in the day, but Thieves officially back in business earlier on in the afternoon. Plenty to talk about. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Just to start here, because we saw the other day the big drama between OpTic and Gentlemates in the grand finals, the $75,000 monster game invitation, or whatever it was called, on this rock here on Exposure. And well, I mean, you can see it is possible to kill the guy if he is, well, let's say on top of it rather than inside it. I don't know. But it has been banned by CMG, right? Which should obviously come as no surprise. Whether the CDL would do something similar, it's interesting to see. But CMG have made it official that for any of their matches, the spot is banned. Laying down or crouching into objects to make your character model hidden or invisible is banned. Bushes or tall grass doesn't count. So, you know, it's always going to be a little bit of a grey area. I'm sure the CDL is going to have some sort of way probably written into the rules. We used to have a public rulebook. I don't know if that really exists anymore or if that's findable. When the CDL first happens, there was a rulebook you could have a look at and you could see what was banned, you know, pixel walks and this type of stuff. They've got a couple of weeks to figure it out if they want to, or we're just going to raw dog the season and it's going to be chaos, especially because this team, you know, it's whatever it takes over at the Gentlemate. And I think that if you're a fan of Gentlemate for the new season, you've got to be excited about this roster. So they officially confirmed it yesterday. I don't think anyone knew this was coming, right? There weren't any leaks about it or anything, but they did a sensational job putting this together, right? Like the video they've put together here, the rebrand itself finally getting away, like Los Angeles Gorillas is dead. Oh my god, I can't believe it. The day has finally come, and well, we don't have to call them the lag mates or whatever. They're officially Mate Paris or Gentle. It's still a strange organization name, but yeah, they're based in Paris. It makes a lot of sense. They're going to be happy about that. They finally got the move done. I think they tried to make it happen last year, but it didn't happen until this season, and they put together a number of pieces of content about this actually with their new roster for the new season, and also their new jersey, which we'll have a look at here in just a second. But before we get there, this is the roster. So Envoy, Ghosty, Sib, Neptune. When this roster was first rumored, stacked full of talent and potential, right? That's the key note. I think it's also worth noting it's pretty similar to last year's Thieves, right? You've got Envoy and Ghosty, who, you know, people say what they want about Envoy and Ghosty, but I think they're quality players, and they did play a key part of Thieves' success for a time last season before things went pear-shaped at the end of the year. Sib, at his best, can be near enough as good as Scrap, if he's like absolutely has an unbelievable season, right? And the same, I think, is true for Neptune with regard to HyDra. Would I take Scrap and HyDra over Sib and Neptune? Yeah, I would. But Sib and Neptune, like, if they have great seasons, this team could still be very deadly. Sib had a bit of a down year last year individually. I wouldn't expect that to stay the same. I think Neptune's going to be just as good at this game as he was last year. So obviously a team to look out for. The reason why people had, you know, a hard time saying, okay, they're going to be competing with OpTic, competing with Thieves, theoretically some of the other best teams, is that there are questions on personalities, how it's going to mesh, whether it's going to work in the long term, right? This is a team that I'm not expecting them to get like better as the year goes on. I think they'll get better, but all the other teams will get better. I think my point is, if they have a hard start, if they struggle at the start of the season, it's difficult to see this team of four just, you know, fixing it, working it all out, and everyone, you know, comes together and makes the move. Because we know that last year, Gentlemates, I know that it's not the same people running the show now, but it was a mess last year behind the scenes internally, like an absolute disaster. This season, they've got a totally different roster, but, you know, you could see here that if things don't go to plan, maybe some friction starts to emerge, right? So I think it's one of those teams that they need to come out the blocks pretty fast, and if they do, they can be a serious force. If they don't, I've got some concerns, but it's very exciting to watch this team. They've got, well, this is at least one of the jerseys they've got put together. Some of the content, this one I thought was pretty funny actually, here with Dan Ghosty. Some of the content they put together with this was pretty brilliant, and here are some of the other jersey angles for the year as well. So I think Gentlemate are doing it right. That Paris event, I'm sure, is going to be brilliant, to be honest. There's going to be so much support there. Yeah, looking forward to that one immensely. That's the Paris Gentlemates. And speaking of Dan Ghosty, he sat down with Ronnie and talked about a few things. Now, this is a pretty long and in-depth article, so I'm not going to go through everything that he had to say. There were a couple of things I thought were particularly interesting. This, for example, with the season ending on a disappointing note after such a fantastic mid-season run, where do you think things went wrong for the Thieves last year? And Ghosty says, no comment, which I thought was kind of insightful, given that he then went on to say later on, what are your relations like with Scrap and HyDra? And he says they're the same as they were before, friends out of the game, and in the game we want to win. So, you know, implies that maybe there was a little bit of friction going on behind the scenes there. So he talked about his performances with Envoy last season. Of course, he's coming over to the Gentlemates as well. He went on to say a couple of things about the new roster. This is probably the most interesting one. What convinced you that Sib and Neptune are the perfect fit to challenge the big three rosters this season? Theoretically, OpTic, Thieves, and FaZe, I would imagine. Ghosty says, to start, Neptune not having a plethora of offers is laughable, and a lot of team owners and managers will be upset that they didn't take the chance given based on what we have seen with Black Ops 7. High-paced, fast gunfights, quick COD that will only showcase more of Neppy's natural ability, which this game is catered for. Dante, coming off an inconsistent year, as some would say, still was easily a top 6 AR player. In terms of damage, okay, you can debate that, but in terms of damage and slaying output, remained a top 3 AR despite these inconsistencies. So, okay, you know, whatever. He's going to gas up his boy. I actually rate Sim very highly. Was he a top 3 AR season? Okay, whatever. Don't forget the guy was the best player in the lobby in the Champs Finals when they played OpTic at 2024 when OpTic took the victory and New York near enough went back-to-back with Sib for Priester. They made the change. But I thought it was interesting that Ghosty says that there weren't really that many offers for Neptune, which is interesting. I mean, I guess we kind of knew this. There were rumours that Neptune was pretty keen to leave Surge. That team was going to blow it up. They weren't getting paid a lot of money. They didn't like playing out of Vancouver. So the team was always going to blow it up. Neptune wanted to go somewhere else. There were rumours that he was actually speaking with Thieves. They weren't very interested. Then there were rumours that because Neptune is snaking his boys before champs or whatever, that, oh, this guy, you know, definitely not interested in teaming with such a snake. I don't know. That was the implication from FaZe anyway. Don't know if that really affected their decision, but there was a feeling that, oh, Neptune's, you know, gone behind his teammates' back or something to field offers. It's like, well, if you're in the position that Neptune was in, getting paid, I don't know what he was getting paid, but it wasn't above the minimum, as far as I'm aware anyway, even if the minimum still exists. It weren't much, is the point, on Surge last year. The team was going to blow it up anyway. Neptune, I think, did exactly the right thing. If it was formal, finessing to get on a better team, people would praise it. So, you know, I've got no issue with Neptune speaking with other teams before the end of last season to see if there was interest in him joining. There was a feeling that FaZe weren't very happy with that, and therefore they went for 0-4 instead, but, you know, probably they'd have gone for 0-4 anyway. I don't know, given what maybe Simp and FaZe wanted. But I think there will be questions there. Like, I can definitely see Gentlemates beating FaZe this year and some questions being raised about whether Neptune was actually the man to get instead, because, you know, Gentlemates was probably the best offer that Neptune had outside of that, but OpTic weren't going to do anything, and Thieves and FaZe weren't interested, so that left this team effectively. But I thought it was interesting what Ghosty had to say regardless. Now, we did get some scrims underway again last night. These are pretty interesting. Formal had some thoughts on them as well. We'll discuss a little bit later on in the day. But the other day we saw OpTic dominated the $75,000 tournament. Okay, they beat Gentlemates 4-3 in the finals. It was controversial. Thieves bombed out relatively early on. But last night was a very different story. We had a couple of maps of scrims. This was, well, I've just got 2 screenshots for you here, but we'll see the other overall results as well. They played 5 maps of hardpoint, and Thieves won every single hardpoint map. Now, I think in many respects this is going to be fantastic for OpTic. Look, Thieves, they looked pretty good in scrims leading up to the tournament. They then turned up to the tournament and got slapped around, and OpTic won the whole thing. It's still very early days. Like, people that were saying Thieves were going to be terrible, you know, that and like, oh, should drop Kenny or something. I mean, I couldn't believe my eyes when people were talking about dropping Kenny 1 week in. Look, come back to me in 3 months and we can probably have the discussion, right? Maybe after Major 1, I don't know. But some of the reactions that were happening, like, immediately into Black Ops 7, I thought were pretty remarkable. And look, again, it's only a scrim set. It doesn't massively matter, but it just shows that Thieves are, you know, they're a serious team, especially because it's not like OpTic were playing badly yesterday. They went on to batter Gentlemates very short shortly afterwards. So Thieves are playing some good stuff, and they were using a lot of ARs as well, which was pretty interesting to see, because after the meta shifted and they changed the balancing and the SMGs and the Drazah became more viable, it kind of felt like, okay, maybe that's going to be the way that we go, and it's going to massively favour OpTic. It felt like the pace of the SMGs that they had back at that tournament were very impactful. But actually, we saw a few more ARs. Not to say the SMGs weren't being used, but obviously on this map, where you're going to see a lot of subs, Kenny's 27 in 14, double positive. Pretty much the entire team is positive, putting OpTic in the blender. So OpTic ended up getting 5-0'd, which is pretty impressive, right? And it wasn't especially close. OpTic, 169, 117. They, 250, 140. 49 here as well. That was on the exposure. 250, 204 on the den. So that was the closer one, really. And then they played the Scar, and it was 250, 232, which is another closer one, right? So, competitive on a couple of the maps, but Thieves definitely did the damage. So, yeah, I think we're in for a great year. I think there was some, not concern from other teams, but there was some discussion after OpTic won that kickoff, the 75k kickoff, to be like, oh, well, OpTic, they're unbeatable, they're never going to lose, they're just going to win everything. And no, right? Like, we're going to be in for a good season. There's other competitive teams. Gentlemates are competitive. Thieves are for sure going to be competitive. How this translates when the season starts, who knows? But I think this could be pretty useful for OpTic, because they've been winning absolutely everything. And for them to turn up to a scrim and Thieves to give them just a little reality check. It's only a scrim, but it is a little reality check. OpTic didn't just slam them 5-0, in which case OpTic would be like, oh my god, we're literally unbeatable. But, this will make OpTic think, okay, we actually can be beaten. There's a few things we've got to work on. It's still very early days. Then they went on to scrim later in the day. The Gentlemate, Shotzzy at least, kept the stream on for this one, and they slammed them, right? So, yeah, some of the kills Shotzzy was getting here were pretty outrageous. It's not like the Drazah is leaving the meta anytime soon, right? But the point is that the AR, like the M15, is still very much viable in the current meta, but that was a disgusting gunfight to win there. So they went on to 5-0 them in the hard points. So, as I say, it's not like OpTic were necessarily playing badly yesterday. They, 250 to 75 them here to 87s here. So they had a couple of 100-point clubs, a couple of 200-point clubs, not really a thing. And then here on the, Colossus, 250 to 204. So OpTic then dominated that one. I think they went on to win the next couple of maps as well when they played the Overload. So, yeah, interesting, because Gentlemates put up such a good fight against them the other day in the Grand Finals, controversially, but indeed that was true. And then in the scrim, it's Thieves who have the way with OpTic, and then it's OpTic who have the way with Gentlemates. So it's all rather interesting. The other big development of last night, and scrims that were going down, was this. So OpTic have officially put together a challengers team. Now, this is what was going on over the last few weeks. There was lots of talk about whether Renegade and Bound, were they going to get separate teams in challenges? Were they going to be able to stay as kind of part of OpTic and make that work? That is what is happening, it seems. So Renegade and Bound's intended teams, I know that Renegade was, there was a couple of players that he was looking to team with. I think Donny Temp was looking to play with Renegade. That then never happened, couldn't happen, whatever, because OpTic wanted to kind of look to do their own thing. But OpTic effectively now have a challengers roster. It's Kips Neum with Bound and Renegade. And, okay, no Formal, no Illy, right, to lead the way. But very interesting to see how these guys get on, because it's a real good story. Some of the Halo guys coming over, like Legends on Surge, they're not looking so good right now. His learning curve will need to be fast if he wants to be a competitive force this season. The same is true for these guys as well. They did get some scrims underway last night. So OpTic lost 5-0 to Thieves. They then 8-0'd the Gentlemates. And then obviously OpTic bounced back from the Thieves series. And then Renegade and Bound, they played Omit and lost 6-1. They played this FA team and lost 7-1. So, or maybe that's Falcons Academy, actually. That would make sense. So, yeah, not exactly an ideal opening scrim set, but still, the potential is absolutely there, you would think. And I know that Zinni was watching it as well. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.